Your life as a medieval doctor. You learned too late? You did not become a doctor because you understood life. You became one because people were dying faster than anyone could explain. You remember the smell first, not blood, rot, sweet, heavy, clinging. It lived in rooms long after bodies were removed. It soaked into wood, into cloth, into your hands no matter how often you washed them. No one prepared you for that. You were taught words before you were taught reality. Latin phrases copied carefully from books written by men who had never opened a living body. Diagrams that looked clean and symmetrical. Explanations that promised order. None of them mentioned the screaming. Your first patient did not look like an illustration. Their skin was discolored, their breathing uneven. Their eyes followed you with something close to hope and something closer to terror. You realized then that people did not come to you to be healed. They came because they were out of options. You were expected to act with certainty. Hesitation frightened people. Fear spread faster than disease. So you spoke firmly, even when you were guessing, especially when you were guessing. You learned to hide uncertainty the way others hid guilt. Your tools were simple: knives, bowls, cloth. A few herbs dried beyond recognition. You were told they had meaning. You believed it because believing was easier than admitting ignorance. When someone died, you did not say you failed. You said the illness was too strong. No one argued. Bloodletting became routine. You cut because that was what doctors did. You watched life drain from people slowly, carefully, measured in bowls. Sometimes they felt relief. Sometimes they did not. Either way, the procedure continued. Stopping would imply doubt. You told yourself you were helping. You told yourself that without you, they would die anyway. You told yourself many things. Survival required it. The sick came in waves, fevers, swellings, sores that would not close. You treated them all with the same calm hands, even when your stomach tightened. You prayed often, not for miracles, for distance. Distance between what you did and what you felt. At night, you washed your hands until your skin cracked. The smell never fully left. You noticed that it followed you home, that it lingered even when you slept. You began to dream of faces you could not save. They did not accuse you. That would have been easier. They simply watched. People trusted you more than you deserved. Trust is dangerous when it is misplaced. You carried it like a weight you could not set down. When the plague reached your town, you recognized it too late. At first, it looked like everything else: fever, weakness, fear. Then the swellings appeared, dark, painful, impossible to ignore. The books did not mention what to do when death arrived this quickly. People begged you to intervene. You tried everything you knew and everything you did not. You cut, you burned herbs, you prayed louder, you told yourself that action was better than nothing. Bodies began to pile faster than you could explain. You realized then that being a doctor did not mean standing between life and death. It meant standing close enough to watch. When fear spread faster than illness, they turned to you. Not because you'd proven anything, but because someone had to speak when silence became unbearable. People needed words, explanations, rituals that made chaos feel organized. You gave them what you could. You spoke of humors, of imbalance, of corrupted air. You used language that sounded precise enough to be believed. Precision was comforting, even when it meant nothing. The sick multiplied. You stopped counting patients by name. You counted by symptoms, by how long they had before their breathing changed, by whether their eyes still followed you when you entered the room. When eyes stopped following, you knew it was already too late. Families begged you to stay longer, to try again, to do something different. You nodded, even when there was nothing left to change. Leaving too quickly felt like abandonment. Staying too long felt dishonest. Either way, you were blamed. You learned that grief does not want truth. It wants direction. So you directed it. You told people what to burn, what to avoid, what to pray. You instructed them to isolate the sick, knowing isolation would kill some faster than disease. But panic demanded action, not accuracy. You watched neighbors seal doors from the outside. You heard knocking stop. You told yourself it was necessary. The tools you used became dull. You sharpened them by habit, by sound, by feel. The rhythm of preparation became the only thing that steadied you. Cut, drain, bind, repeat. You noticed that some patients improved briefly. That brief improvement became proof, not to you, but to others. Proof that you knew what you were doing. Proof that they should bring more bodies. You were trapped by your own reputation. When you fell ill for the first time, you treated yourself the same way you treated others. You cut, you bled, you prayed, you survived, not because of your methods, but because chance passed over you. People called it skill. You did not correct them. You stopped sleeping properly. Sleep brought dreams you could not afford. You stayed awake instead, organizing herbs, cleaning tools, pretending preparation equaled control. Your hands shook sometimes. You learned how to hide it, shaking frightened people. Fear needed to see steady hands. You began to feel the weight of expectation more than the weight of failure. Failure could be explained. Expectation demanded continuation. If you stopped, you would be admitting something unforgivable, that you never truly knew how to save them. When deaths increased, accusations followed. Whispers that you were ineffective, that you angered God, that your presence invited sickness instead of curing it. Trust and suspicion lived close together. You walked between them carefully. One evening, a patient died under your care while their family watched. Not suddenly, slowly. The kind of death that leaves time for anger to form. The room went quiet. You felt eyes on you, not pleading now, but measuring, assessing whether you were still useful, whether hope should be placed elsewhere. You spoke quickly, explained complications, blamed hidden factors. Your voice did not break. Inside, something did. You understood then that your role was no longer about healing. It was about maintaining belief, and belief was more fragile than flesh. Death stopped feeling dramatic. That realization frightened you more than the bodies. At first, every loss felt heavy. Each failure stayed with you. You remembered faces, voices, the way people looked at you when they realized you could not help them. But repetition changes things. Weight becomes routine. Horror becomes process. You began to move through rooms without reacting. You learned how to tell when someone was already gone, even while they still breathed. The body gives signs, subtle ones. A slackness behind the eyes. A change in the sound of air moving through lungs. Once you noticed it, you could not unsee it. Families still begged you to try. You did. You always did. Not because it mattered, but because refusing would make you responsible in a different way. You noticed that fewer people touched the sick now. They stood farther back, held cloth to their faces, avoided eye contact. Fear had shifted from illness to proximity, and you stood in the center of it. You were close to everything no one else wanted near. Your clothes absorbed the smell of sickness. You stopped changing them often. Clean fabric felt dishonest, as if pretending this was temporary, as if pretending you could return to something normal. You could not. Children were the hardest, not because they died more painfully, but because they watched you closely. They believed you. Belief carries an obligation that no amount of knowledge can satisfy. When a child died under your care, the room did not erupt. It collapsed inward, quiet, heavy, final. You stood there, hand-stained, knowing there was nothing you could say that would not sound hollow. So you said very little. People began to avoid you outside your work, not openly, subtly. Conversations ended when you approached. Chairs shifted. Doors closed more quickly. You were associated with outcomes no one wanted to imagine. You had become a reminder. The town needed you, but did not want you near. You understood that this was the cost of proximity to death. You carried it so others could keep pretending it was distant. At night, you tried to remember why you had chosen this path, or whether it had chosen you. The distinction felt irrelevant now. You thought about the books you studied, the certainty they promised, how confident their authors sounded, how clean their conclusions were. None of them prepared you for this. For the helplessness disguised as authority. For the way people looked at you when you failed them repeatedly but had no alternative. You were asked to declare causes of death. You did. Fevers, corruption, God's will, anything that created order. Order was necessary. Without it, people would turn on each other, or on you. You noticed that you had begun to speak of patients in the past tense before they died. It made the transition easier, for you. You did not feel proud of this adaptation, but you accepted it. Because adaptation was survival, you realized that being a medieval doctor did not mean fighting death. It meant learning how to live alongside it without losing the ability to function. And that skill came at a price you could not calculate. You did not stop because stopping was not an option. The sick still came. The dying still needed someone to stand near them. And you were still there, not because you believed anymore, but because absence would have been worse. You learned to begin each day without expectation. Expectation led to disappointment. Disappointment led to hesitation. Hesitation frightened people. Fear made everything collapse faster. So you worked. You moved through homes where death had already chosen its place. You entered rooms that smelled wrong before you saw anything. You recognized that smell now. It warned you before words could. People asked you the same questions every time. Will they live? When will it end? What should we do? You answered carefully, not truthfully, carefully. Truth would have offered no comfort, and comfort was now part of your role. You noticed how easily people redefined success. Survival for a day became progress. A slower death became improvement. Hope shrank until it fit whatever outcome occurred. You allowed this. You needed it too. You were no longer surprised when someone died under your hands. You were surprised when they didn't. Survival felt unnatural now, like an error in a system designed for loss. You stopped remembering names. Not intentionally. Not cruelly. Your mind simply protected itself. You noticed how your hands moved automatically, how your voice remained steady even when you felt nothing behind it. You had become efficient, reliable, empty. And that frightened you, quietly. One evening, you were called too late. The body was already cold. The family still watched you, waiting for confirmation they already knew. You nodded once. They did not cry. They thanked you. That was when you understood the final shift. You were no longer there to save anyone. You were there to witness, to confirm, to give shape to loss, to stand between chaos and acceptance. You went home alone. You always did. Your presence unsettled people now, not because you brought disease, but because you brought certainty. Certainty is harder to live with than fear. You washed your hands again and again. The smell remained. It always did. You understood now that it was not on your skin. It was in you. You thought about the person you had been before, the one who believed knowledge would be enough. That effort could overcome ignorance. That intention mattered more than outcome. That person felt distant, almost fictional. You had learned too much to believe those things anymore. Years passed. The plague receded. Not because it was defeated, but because it had taken what it came for. The town slowly tried to remember itself. People spoke again, gathered again, pretended. You remained, older, quieter, less certain of what you had achieved. People still called you doctor. The word carried respect now, not admiration, endurance. You had outlasted something that destroyed others. You wondered whether that was success. You looked at your hands one last time before sleep, scarred, stained, steady. Hands that had done everything they knew how to do. Hands that still could not save most of them. You lay down knowing one truth clearly. You were not a hero. You were not a miracle worker. You were simply someone who stayed close to death long enough to survive it. And that was the life of a medieval doctor.